So hi, Jessamy. Thanks so much for joining me today on the Financial Planner Life podcast. How are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, hi, Sam.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Jessamy, so thanks for joining me today. Obviously, the Financial Planner Life podcast is all about financial planners from all different levels, really, whether they're employed, self-employed, run their own businesses, paraplanners, sharing their stories as to why they became a financial planner and really their journey within financial planning, where it's taking them. So, for example, you're the MD there, aren't you, of Brown Dog Financial Planning? So I think today our listeners would love to hear about your journey, because you've gone from employed into self-employed, running your own business and employing people, and that in its own right isn't an easy feat. So I think you'll have some realities to be able to share about that within your career. So I'm really looking forward to asking some questions about that. So Jessamy, really, my first question to you really is, first off, is how did you end up getting into financial planning?
Like so many people, by accident, probably. By training, I'm a marine biologist. I used to count sea urchins and fish on the tropical reef and the Indian Ocean. Cool. Why wouldn't I carry on doing that? Came back from Kenya and went temping. And one of my temp jobs was into a stockbroker's office. Admin, nothing. It was meant to be a 3-month job. I loved it and stayed 8 years. And it just, tech bubble, made redundant, fed up with commuting into London by that stage. I'd moved out, and it was just too many early mornings for an 8:30 stock market start. And I got myself a job probably about 15 minutes from home as a paraplanner. And just went from there.
So, yeah, okay, so marine biologist, first of all, that sounds pretty cool. Over in where? Kenya?
Yeah.
Literally, was that what you studied for then, was it?
Yeah, so I did a marine biology degree.
Yeah.
Went off IUCN, or an international conservation group, went and worked for them, various projects. It's one of those things that either you go into properly and you go into a PhD and really, really drill down into it, or you get stuck as the guy on the beach counting stuff.
Yeah.
And it got to the stage where I was going to get stuck, living on the beach, having a great time, but no prospects, no pension. I was going to get stuck there. I wouldn't have been able to. Affording a plane ticket to go somewhere else just didn't happen. It's a job people will volunteer to do, so you don't get paid much for it.
So when you were at university, then that was what you was that, or whether you were at university, did you go to university? Yeah. So that was what you were studying to do then, marine biology. That was your sort of passion from a younger age. So financial services wasn't nothing, it wasn't in your sort of plan.
Didn't even know it existed.
Didn't even know it existed. Yeah, there we go. Precisely. So, and that's very much for a lot of people, people who are leaving university right now. There's some that will consider financial services as a route to get into, but the types of things they hear about is analysts or stockbroker or investment management or private banking or something like that. But when it comes to some things like financial planning, for instance, they don't really have a great deal of knowledge around really what financial planning actually is from a university perspective. And I think the education's starting to come in and people are starting to learn a little bit more about it. And again, this is part of the podcast, really. We're trying to bridge that gap. So if anyone's listening from university, they can understand a bit more about financial planning.
Just that whole thing that there isn't even a module in the sixth form that says, here, this is how a credit card works. Don't, use one sensibly. This is what a mortgage is. Nothing. That's one of my frustrations, that there is no education about it. And then suddenly it kind of drops in at much later life. But you should know how to do all these things, shouldn't you?
Yeah, you kind of dumped in it when you've spent a bit of money and got yourself into debt or something like that, or you've got to buy a house or something. You don't really get taught the fundamentals of money, financial education at all, do you?
No, not at all.
And I've met a few people, like there's a few guys that are doing it for children now. So they've set up sort of financial education for children and trying to teach children from as young as 4 or 5 years old about savings and all that kind of thing. And apparently, most of the sort of things a child would learn is really relatively from around 4 or 5 years old. So they start to ingrain those learning habits. And apparently getting stuck in at that age with money is as basic as it can be, like having a piggy bank and this is how much money you're putting in there and this is how much goes here, is good. I haven't done that yet. I've got a daughter who's 4 years old. It's like, money, give me money.
Doing some behavioural finance stuff recently. Apparently we our beliefs and our concepts around money are, we have this period of time from about 4 to about 7 where we just absolutely believe what we're told with no reasoning.
Yeah.
And then from 7, I'm not quite sure where the ages are, but from 7 onwards, we start to apply reasoning to it. So a lot of our own beliefs about money and the way we behave around money are harked back to then. So if you're told, oh, there isn't any for that, money doesn't grow on trees, then often people that come from that sort of a background are very secure, saver, don't spend it, it's dangerous. Whereas if you come from a background that is, it's all okay, it doesn't matter so much, we take that on board, and they tend to be people that are more relaxed around it, much less worries around money. And that comes back from when you're 4, 5. We don't stand a chance, really, do we?
No, exactly. Yeah, everyone. So yeah, people worry about money, don't they? It's like one of the biggest worries, and it causes some serious mental health issues as well, doesn't it? And I think that's what I'm liking so much around. I'm seeing so much more around financial well-being and the way financial planning is being positioned as financial well-being, and also like financial planning coaches. I think that's all very, very modern and very forward-thinking. And there's lots of companies that are coming up. I was on the phone yesterday to Scott Stevens, who's head of Quilter, and he was talking about the Australian.
They've got a big wellbeing initiative, haven't they, Quilters at the moment?
Yeah, they have. Yeah, I think most of the large companies are kind of pushing the whole financial well-being. He was mentioning about he's got a few connections over in Australia, and he was saying about the kind of approach over in Australia is this financial coaching. So going out there as like financial coaches, having the content, tackling real basic kind of financial coaching needs, put it on a subscription basis, and then that filters then into the financial planners behind the scenes, more like paraplanners who do all the research, do all of that. But the actual coaches are kind of like almost, they're coaches as opposed to what we consider them to be financial planners, sitting there talking about the ins and outs of the pension. They're talking about things that are a bit more kind of behavioral psychology based.
So exactly that. I'm halfway through. Well, I've just done the first main chunk of a financial coaching course.
Have you?
And
yeah.
The last 6 months is putting it into practice to qualify and to be signed off.
And
I think it matters. I could turn around and say, here, these are the things you should do with your money. But if that doesn't fit with your personality type, so me, for example, I have to save money into a pension or an account that I can't see, because otherwise I see something shiny and spend it. And so it has to be hidden away from me almost a little bit. But I know that's how I behave, so therefore I put my money into I've got a chunk of money in premium bonds because it takes 4 days to get it back. I've gone past buying the shiny impulsive shopping thing by then. So
okay,
just managing how it works.
Okay, cool. Out of sight, out of mind, that type of approach. I'm a bit like that. I'm a bit like that at the moment. Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit about your career to date then. Okay, so you were a marine biologist, didn't fancy standing in the sea counting sea urchins. You then came back to the UK and you ended up getting a job as an administrator for a stockbroker in London. Yeah. So stockbroker in the city. Did you not fancy did you not fancy getting into stockbroking? Did you stick at administration for so many years? What was, what did you do for that whilst you were working there? And who was it? Was it Killick & Co, wasn't it?
It was, yes. I did admin for them for probably 18 months, 2 years.
Okay.
And then they put in graduate training program that I tagged on the side of.
Yeah.
Qualified and stockbroked. Yeah.
So you were doing stockbroking, yeah?
Yeah.
How long were you doing stockbroking for?
Probably 2 or 3 years. And then the tech bubble came along, and Killicks were a house that were really, really tech heavy. And so what was, at the end of November, a massively expanding, we've got 200 people, let's have more, run around to the end of March. So it was like, actually, we want 100 and we still want less of them. So, like all of these things, here, clear your desk, off you go. You've been made redundant. So devastating at the time. But silver linings. Go on.
Were you doing qualifications and things back then as well? Did you mention there you went through like a graduate program? What qualifications did you do back then out of interest?
So I did all the Securities Institute. So I was stockbroking, was qualified to do all of those kind of things. made redundant. It made me look for a job closer to home because I got fed up with commuting.
Yeah.
And yeah, stuff like that happens and the stock market crashes. Suddenly there's not the same number of jobs in a financial services stockbroking-y basis. So I moved and went paraplanning for, I worked as an investment paraplanner for somebody just outside Reading.
Yeah.
And then worked up through those, typical paraplanner to financial advisor route at that point.
So how long ago was that though? Because, the paraplanner job role, if you like, it's only really been more popular or mainstream, or actually a position, if you like, for the last sort of 5 years, where there's been a huge demand for it. But obviously people were doing paraplanning before it became a bit trendier and a role within its own right. So how long ago was that then?
So I went out for lunch with one of the other guys from Killix and said, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And he worked on they put in a wealth management financial services arm. And he said, well, what about paraplanning? And I went, what's that? And it probably took me about another 3 months to actually understand that it was a really clever word for help this advisor do stuff. I mean, it took, paraplanner doesn't really tell you what the job, administrator, you know what the job is.
Yeah.
Paraplanner, it was posh administration rather than paraplanning. It included writing suitability reports, but the advisors formulated the advice and I just ticked the boxes and filled out all the compliance stuff, really.
So would you say that a paraplanner position then is a good route into becoming a financial planner?
I'm going to be a bit controversial and say possibly not. In my opinion, and I know the conventional route says, you do administrator, trainee paraplanner, trainee advisor, But I think a really good paraplanner, and I mean a proper paraplanner, not a posh administrator like I was. I mean a technical paraplanner is often a different personality type to an advisor. An advisor is a creative wing it on the hoof because you don't know what the client's going to throw at you kind of a person. And generally speaking, they're fairly shocking at admin. A really good technical paraplanner will be, everything has to be just so, and they'll be very precise and very accurate. And that whole wing it thing doesn't really fit with that really clever technical, those are not the right words, but that really precise work that a really good paraplanner will do. And I mean, when I say paraplanner there, I mean career paraplanner rather than what I was. So I would have been what I would describe now as a client relationship manager. And I think that's more of that, possibly more extroverty, more happy to talk to clients, happy to just chit chat about the dog and the whatever else it is that's in their world, and remember stuff about people. And I think that person actually makes a really good advisor because there's that client facing thing. And I think there's a different route for a technical paraplanner. And I think sometimes they force them, not so much now, but back when I was doing it, you get pushed into, this is your career path. Well, I was a shocking paraplanner because I had very little attention to detail and it didn't really interest me to do all those proper geeky calculations. I wanted to talk to people. I wanted to do the bigger picture stuff. The guy that worked with me at where I went as my first paraplanner job is a fellow of the CII, and he does all their quizzes every year, and he's absolutely brilliant. And he has gone that route. They tried to make him advise, and he didn't like it. And that was purely personality type. And he's a brilliant career paraplanner, and probably earns as much as an advisor would because he's as good as he is.
Well, yeah, some, paraplanners can command salaries of 60 to 65k top end now, especially in London. I
would think Simon's probably even on more than that, actually.
Really? Yeah. Well, fair play. Well, it's definitely, if you're a good paraplanner, and also as well, what's really in demand is like paraplanner managers. So someone who can manage teams of paraplanners as well and manage their workload, because obviously that's a struggle with its own right as well, because I think, again, what would have traditionally probably fallen upon the manager of the business to then run a team of paraplanners, whereas actually that's, from a personality perspective, that might not work. So having somebody that actually understands power planning and what the power planner actually does, that's a great route for somebody within power planning to progress their career. And I think the more we see, the more power planners coming into the industry, which it will inevitably be, because that's going to be a natural route in anyway. You're going to see more power planning managers as well, and the salary is only going to go up. So it's definitely when you mention their career power planning, for the right person, that is the route to go down, because you don't have to go into power planning to be a financial advisor. You can go into power planning to be a power planner, and a lot of people are incredibly happy doing so.
And I think there's a little bit of historic pressure that, if you were a power planner, you became an advisor. But I think that's going. And I think that can only be a good thing, because they are separate skills and separate skill sets. I was a shocking paraplanner. I like to think I'm not a bad advisor. My clients are staying, so hey, can't be doing too badly.
There you go. And I think as well, we talked a bit about financial coaches. So like looking over in like an Australian market, or you're seeing more of these financial coaches, especially where someone's pushing themselves online and promoting themselves online, opening themselves up to way more clients than they usually would. That financial coach can be more client facing sales, if you like, marketing. And then the clients come on in, feed back into a team of power planners that can do the research and manage those and manage the actual technical side of it. And you can and it's all nicely simplified on, certain documents that are done from a tech perspective. So it's nice and easy. And then the coach can just go back and speak to the clients, no problem at all. So I think there again, there'll be a demand for more power planners sitting behind businesses than there ever would be especially in the future when it starts to be a hell of a lot more utilized like social media than it is at the moment.
And that'll probably be my next hire. So we're a team of 4 at the moment. 2 administrators, a client-facing paraplanner who does want to be an advisor. So my next hire will probably be a pure paraplanner, and not wanting to sit out in front of them. I think financial coaching. So this is something that I've done with a view to the future, because there are clients out there that don't need full financial planning, or are younger families, whatever, don't want to pay for full financial planning, whole warts and all, everything. I think they want this is my perception, and this is what we're trying to do, is a more of a light touch of what do I need, and what do I need to do? What are my tax allowances? Am I doing the right thing? But with a very bigger holistic view, because they've got a pension through work. You can go online and buy a Vanguard, whatever, relatively simply. The internet has opened up so much more, and we're so much more savvy about what you can do and people quite like to do some of that themselves, but just want a bit of help with the more technical or getting started, the education piece. We've got a new service again aimed at younger clients to educate and to learn a bit more about how to save properly, how to use your credit card properly, how to do all those things that you should be taught in school that you're not, with the view that they'll be the clients of the future. That if someone had said to me at age 30, by the way, put £50 a month into your pension, I'd have gone, I'm too young, whatever. And if they'd said it, if you don't do it now, you're going to have to do 5 times as much when you do finally start. I might have done, if I'd understood a bit more about why.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's fair. No problem. So, what I was going to say to you as well is that, look, you're looking through your background. So you went from stockbroking into then power planning. So as you mentioned, then more of a CRM type role back then. So very client facing. So you had that feeling that actually you quite enjoyed working with clients on that basis, as opposed to being sitting out the back sort of with a couple of spreadsheets doing some sums, You're more interested in the client side. Did that then push you then into becoming a financial planner? When you were power planning, were you sitting with the advisor? Were you working with the advisor? Did you see how financial planning was? What then made you transition into the role of a financial planner?
So having done the stockbroking work, which is very client facing as well, to go back to being a paraplanner, I used to, one of those classic 4 desks on an island thing, 2 paraplanners, 2 advisors, and you sat next to your advisor. Much more of, I wanted his job. It was much more interesting than mine. I had to write suitability reports and do boring admin stuff. I mean, I love a spreadsheet, and I can be really geeky about a spreadsheet and some of the tech stuff. because it's interesting and it's a challenge, and it's making the bigger picture come good. You know, if you've got lifetime allowance, annual allowance calculations, they're all a bit geeky, but they come back. You know, you do them because it's like, oh, here, actually, it's all right. I fixed your tax problem. I've fixed your problem. Yeah. So I did paraplanning for 4 years probably, and then saw an advert very local to home, someone looking for an advisor. And I thought, well, I'm not really an advisor. I've got the qualifications to do it. Well, FPC 1, 2, and 3, or whatever it was that counted at that point. I've done client facing with stockbrokers. I'll just phone and see if they'll interview me. And he kind of went, well, what are you doing? I went, oh, I'm working closely with the investment specialist, and I blagged my way into a job I had no idea how to do. But he didn't know either.
So that was, who was that working for then? So you went from power planning into financial planning, and that was an employed role, was it? You didn't go down the self-employed role. It was an employed financial advisor position.
Role.
Okay. Yeah. And was that and that was your first job within financial planning? So you had the qualifications, you held FPCs, which they were at the time, and you moved into that financial planning. So that was an employed financial planner role.
Yeah. They'd had an advisor retire, and they'd taken over a couple of client banks, and there was a wedge of orphan clients.
Okay.
Yeah, it was cold calling. Tepid cold calling. You know, it was, you used to speak to blah, blah, blah. I can't even remember the man's name, Anthony something, 3 years ago. And it's been a while since we've had a review. So I thought I should phone and book something.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't quite solid cold calling, but it wasn't pretty.
It was warmish. It was lukewarm. You had a name of somebody.
I knew who I was calling from.
Yeah.
And when I said, you know, you've got a standard life pension or so and so, you used to talk to, and that was about it. And then. So
because obviously back then, this is pre-RDR as well, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Proper sales.
So very salesy, very commission based. Yeah. And did it, you know, was it like that? Was that? It was.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah.
Targets, commission. We used to have a whiteboard in the office that you wrote your commish. Yeah. And every month it was wiped off clean, and you had to put some numbers up there. And the pressure to put numbers up there for just anything. I mean, I'd come into an old client bank, so I was very lucky in that what I was actually doing was, in the main, good advice as well. You know, there were a couple of protection policies I think I rebroached that I didn't really know what I was doing, so they probably didn't need it. But generally speaking, it was old style pensions, expensive charges, into a stakeholder, and was generally good advice and in the right direction. So although it was a sales job, it wasn't, I didn't feel like I was doing the wrong thing. And that's always been quite important to me, that, you know, a couple of other advisors that I met around that time were very, you know, we used to have a bell in the office, and you rang the bell if you wrote a deal for more than £5,000. Horrible. I think I never got to ring it once. And in fact, I think I used to just put my numbers on the board and walk away, and that just felt really, yeah.
Is that because you're just not that type of person? You don't particularly like that sales environment, or was it because you felt that what they, you know, did you feel like the culture of sales within financial planning was wrong? Or was it just down to your personality? You're not, you know, one to show off.
Bit of both. I'm a long-term relationship builder, farmer person. That's not to say I'm not looking for new clients to build that relationship with, but it's quite important to me to do the right thing. And I worked with 5 or 6 other guys, and there was one guy there who was, I'm going to do this for 3 years, and then I'm going to emigrate, so I need to make as much money as I possibly can in these 3 years. And I remember taking on one of his clients after he left, and working out that the client had paid more in commission than he'd earned in the 3 years. And it's just not right.
So that was what was going on, wasn't it? There was a lot of people making a lot of money just flogging products that were just whoever was paying the most commission, basically.
Yeah, it was horrible. I mean, Aviva were paying 8.25% or something on a lump sum on a transfer, on a pension transfer. You know, here's a stakeholder. It's really, really good for you. It's cheap and low charges and blah, blah, blah. Here, have one of these.
And they just pay you.
No ongoing built into it. Just 8.5 up front.
Yeah, and you were doing no ongoing fees, no ongoing advice, anything like that. It was purely commission based, and that was so. How long were you doing that for?
So we didn't charge an ongoing fee, but there was an ongoing process. So there was an annual review and stuff like that about it. So it wasn't quite rape and pillage, but it was close. How long did I do that for? I worked for the firm probably for 8 years. RDR came along in the middle of it. I probably spent 2 years were, I'm a new advisor, this is what I do. I don't really like this feeling very much. 2 years were RDR's coming, oh, thank God for that, I don't have to do it like that. Oh, and now they'll actually pay me. See, the whole point of taking up an upfront fee and no ongoing was because I didn't get paid on the ongoing. So why would I write it? Management team then changed that, so we got paid for an ongoing. So I then spent 2 years kind of setting up for RDR. So RDR for me was relatively simple because it already converted to a better model. And I'd kept enough clients, or had built up enough of a client bank and doing the right thing that I still have some of them. Some of them came with me, and I still have them.
Okay, cool. So these are relationships you built there for that within that 8 years, and you've still got them now because you didn't just focus purely on the commission based side of it. You built those relationships, which is the focus that you had, and they've come with you all the way through. It's
actually ordered a birthday present for somebody who's 70 this year, who I started working with at 56.
Okay. So there's a lot of trust and relation. Yeah, the trust and relationship that's been built there. Here's a question for you then. You've worked within the financial planning profession for some time, and you've been the post RDR, pre RDR, you've seen the sales commission side. From a personality perspective, do you think somebody who's a really good salesperson, if they stepped across into financial planning, do you think they would make a good financial planner?
Yes, I don't see why not, because the difference is what you're selling. So historically you were selling a product on behalf of an insurance company, so you sold that. I think the difference now is that I sell advice, and actually, so there's still the sales process about it. That's not to say that's not there still. It's just the product that you sell is different. It's now, here is the plan, here is the way to make what you're doing right, more efficient, tax efficient, and I think, fundamentally, if you just charge a fee for that bit of work, then why couldn't a salesperson do that as well? It's not, you don't have to be paid for putting a product in place. You can be paid for just doing the work that you do, and that's still a sell wherever you are.
Because you tend to find somebody who's a bit of a sales monster tends to have a certain type of personality, don't they? They tend to be quite extrovert. They would sell their granny to get something, that type of thing. That's the kind of view people have of people that are really good at sales. And I just always think, it's always had a very negative tone, really, isn't it? Sales within financial planning, probably due to pre-RDR and trying to get rid of that commission-based sales monsters that were around.
And there are still those, there are sales monsters. There are still those. So again, I work through a network and a peer group, and there are still advisors that I know that are purely about the sale. Now, it's wrapped up in tax planning and being efficient and everything else, but ultimately what drives them and what floats their boat is the next sale, the next deal. As long as it's done for the right reasons and for the benefit of the client, there's nothing wrong with the sale, because I think there's a lot of people out there that wouldn't do that get stuck holding cash and not doing something. So there's an element of over the longer term, it is better for you to invest in stocks and shares, because over 20, 30 years, they are proven to outperform. But there's a sales process there. There's a bit that says, you don't know anything about it, you don't understand it, I have to educate you and I have to tell you why it's better for you. And there's an element of persuasion and why that is better for you or not. That's not to say you shouldn't keep a good old chunk of money in cash for all those other things, but it has to be part of a bigger picture rather than just a oh, yeah, what can I sell you? Oh, you haven't got any life insurance. Oh, I'll sell you some of that. Oh, and you know, you live on your own and you've got a mortgage and you've got no one to leave it to. But do you know what? You better have loads of life insurance. Well, who cares if your mortgage is paid off if you're dead and you've got no one to leave it to? You know, that it's got to be the right sale.
More of a consultative sale, isn't it? Really, you know, like you're selling a service, and you're not just selling a product. You're selling a service. As you said,
I think it stops being a sale. You know, if you do the whole planning process that says, you know, what are your goals? Where do you want to live in retirement? Who's important to you? Where do you want to be? And you build that whole picture through, then actually okay, so this is what you've got, and here are the nuts and bolts of the products that you've got underneath, and this one's not actually very good, so I think we should move it to something else, which was the historic sale. Because you've done the right bit of work at the beginning, and that stops being a sale. It's just this is then, it's like taking a car to the garage. You know, the bloke turns around and says, well, the brakes are about to fall off, you need new ones. Okay, yes, please. It's not you know, that he sold you brakes, but that's not a pushy sale. It's one for the right reasons.
Okay, so you were working as an employed financial planner then, and obviously you ended up leaving that company. What was the reason for that? What, you know, when you were you know, working on a self-employed basis, were you sort of and ahhing and thinking about doing it yourself at any point? Were you sort of thinking, well, I could do this myself? I talked to lots of financial advisors, and you know, they're employed, but in the back of their minds, some of them are thinking, oh, I can do this. This is really easy. I could run a business and just do it all myself and earn way more money. Did that sort of cross your mind when you were employed as well, or not?
Yeah, of course it does. I think it does for everybody at some point. You know, whether you're then the right person to take that risk or not. So yeah, I mean, I bought into the company that I worked for. I was a shareholder. I thought we had a succession plan in place that 3 or 4 of us were going to buy out the retiring advisors. Didn't happen. They sold to a consolidator. I ended up being tied in for a 3-year period to a company that I just couldn't wait to get out of. And so for that 3-year, I probably spent 18 months of that setting up my own business in the background and working out how the hell I was going to do it, and being terrified.
Okay, so you were a shareholder within the company that then the guys agreed to actually sell it on instead of passing it down to you guys, or giving the opportunity for you guys to buy it. Yeah. So you were tied in then to what, during the period of sale, you had to stay with that business because you were due a payout as well? How did there was a
3-year earn out period. They paid 50% up front and then 25. And we had to keep profitability up. So so we all tied into clauses that ended up on a 3-year period.
Because at the end of it, you were going to get paid out as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, cool. So at that point there, then you thought to yourself, right, well, this isn't for me. You know, these guys are selling on to somebody else and they're not selling to me. I'll stay here. I'll get my payout. And then, you know, in the background, you're also you're also planning and setting up your own business. So what were you thinking at that point then? Were you thinking you were going to go down the directly authorized route? Were you thinking you were going to be an appointed representative, or you were going to just be self-employed as a registered individual under somebody else? What decision did you make when you decided that you were going to go self-employed?
We were directly authorized, and I just thought that was the way of the world. You know, I'd worked for a network before, but we'd come out of that. Directly authorized was what I wanted to do. Spoke to a client of my husband's, who's also a financial advisor, and was just kind of, you know, impartial opinion. I can't talk to the guys that I work with because that's too close to him. I don't really know anybody else in the industry because we were very much, you don't want to bother going networking or talking to other advisors. They're the competition, which now I find really strange, but that was how it was at the time. So I spoke to this guy and he kind of went, well, I work through Openwork, come and join us. And I went, don't want to, not really. And then he was retiring 3 years later. And he said, well, what I'm looking for is a locum to share with. Set up your own business, but we could do it under a joint umbrella. And, you know, this would be the split. You know, this is how it could work. And on my own, I thought, actually, there's a little bit of safety about that, going from an employed role with 5 other advisors and a support team. You know, there were 16, 17 of us in the business. Suddenly it was going to be just me. Just me with an awareness that I'm not very good at paraplanning and I don't like admin. Maybe not so good. And I was going to have to learn a whole bunch of new computer systems and whatever else is, and not know whether I'd actually get any clients, not know, know that probably for 18 months I wasn't going to make any money at all. So I asked another friend, I've got a horse, and one of the other girls at the yard also worked for Open Work, and I went, oh, could you just go and have a look and tell me if his business is any good or not? And she came back and she said, well, funnily enough, it is quite good and you could do that, but I'm looking for a self-employed advisor. What do you reckon? So I did a half jump ship, and I went and worked. I did a year as a self-employed advisor through her office. It was all the bad bits of being employed and self-employed. I had to conform to office hours and office everything, and had no control about what I did at work, and then didn't get any of the benefits of being employed. So so a year later it was like, this doesn't really work. I have to just go and do it. But I had by that time probably acquired 20 or 30 clients. So I had office support. I had someone else doing business management stuff. I went self-employed to be a financial advisor. That's what I want to do. I want to sit in front of clients. I want to talk to clients. I don't want to run a business. I don't want to do HR. I don't want to do the, phone the electrician, organize a pap test. Oh, ugh, no thanks. But you don't realize that all of that stuff comes along suddenly. So, you set up your own business, and suddenly you are the IT department. You can't just ring them, because suddenly it's you, and you can't afford to pay for all of these things. So you become the IT department, you become the painter decorator before you move into wherever you're going into, you become the HR person, you become the, what do I need to read from the regulator? Have I done this? Haven't I done that? Where do I need to log in to find that? Oh God, I haven't done that. Oh, what do you mean employer's liability? What's that? All of these things you suddenly have to learn while trying to make money, find new clients, get intelligent enough about paying the tax man or setting money aside to pay the tax man. And actually just try not to worry about everything spinning around your head day in, day out. I make it sound awful. Having said that, I wouldn't be anywhere else now.
Well, I can relate to that. So I've run a recruitment company. I've done for the last 12 years and employed people. I've got my own office and everything. And it was, going into directorship there, and I took on 50% of the business, and I went from being just a standalone recruitment consultant to actually being 50% shareholder in the business, and with lots of ideas as well. And I was like, well, that's going to be a piece of piss. I'll just jump on this and I'll just, and it would be absolutely no problem at all. But everything you do, you've got to do something, haven't you? So every step you take, there's more things you have to do. And it does become incredibly exhausting because you're wearing, wearing multiple hats. So I can definitely relate to that. So you did that move where I see quite often, and I put it as an option to somebody. It's like, right, you're employed at the moment. You've got no experience of being self-employed. And sometimes someone will say, well, I'm going to go directly authorized. And it's like, well, you've got absolutely no experience of being self-employed. You want to go down the directly authorized route. That's going to be really difficult. You've got to get PI insurance. You've got to go, you've got to register with the FCA. It takes a long time to do that as well. I don't think you're really thinking about it properly. So, what have you got to bring to the table? How many clients do you think are going to follow you, especially when they're coming from like an employed background? Because they just think, oh yeah, and you do a little bit of a business plan with them. And it turns out they don't have a great deal. And they think, oh, actually, do you know what? I might go down the route of becoming an RI for somebody, stepping across into, say, becoming like, I don't know, earning 50% of everything they write, or sliding scale, whatever it might well be. But there is that grim reality. It's like you're being employed. It's like you are an employee, but with the self-employed badge, and you nailed it really. You get all the benefit. You don't really get a great deal of benefits. You still and you're still in that, and you don't really shape that employed mindset either. So you're still kind of one foot in employed, one foot in self-employed. You don't know whether, and the person who's owning the business, it's their business. You've got your own business underneath it, yet you still kind of worry about what that person's saying. You feel a bit controlled, I think.
Very. And the kind of clients and things that you can't go out and do your own marketing and your own, because it all sits under their brand and so you can't, and the clients that they want to attract as an established business, when I went there, anyone that wants to come through the door, yes, please come in. Yeah. They've already established themselves as a much, we'll deal with high net worth individuals. And yeah, that's where I wanted to be eventually. But when you're first writing business and you need to pay the bills, anybody at all who wants to come through the door, yep, I'll do that. I'll help you. Yeah, that's fine. I've got time because I haven't got any clients. So, a client paying a little rather than no client at all is better. And you build it up from there. And as time goes on, you move and you start to go, okay, now these are the people I want to work with, this group, and you just change your message so it goes out to that group.
So what advice would you give to somebody who is currently employed as a financial planner and thinking about going self-employed? What advice would you give them based on your personal experience?
So I was quite impulsive and I just jumped. Well, impulsive. I knew it was coming and I thought, well, I'll just go and set up for myself. That'll be fine. It didn't really occur to me to do business planning or to, my accountant didn't help me at all. Suddenly at the end of the year, I got a tax bill and on account for next year. It was like, what's that about? Okay. So what advice would I give them? I would probably join a business coaching or get business coaching help from somewhere, or go networking, because other people running their own businesses in the group will tell you, so-and-so's a good accountant. Or by the way, have you put 20% aside for your tax bill? Set up a separate account to do that. Or, I do social media, but I found this ways, I use Canva, I use Active Campaign. Don't bother with that one, it doesn't work, it's glitchy with an iPhone. Just stuff that other people, whatever businesses they run, have done. Don't reinvent the wheel. Use all of that stuff and outsource as soon as you possibly can. Get a bookkeeper, outsource the horrible stuff. Get a bookkeeper, use a virtual assistant to start with if you don't, if you're a typical advisor and don't like admin and don't want to do that stuff, get someone else to do it as soon as you possibly can.
So absolutely, I agree with that. And there are plenty of ways to outsource parts of your job for quite cheap as well. You don't have to use UK based companies either. I know I do a lot of my marketing, for example, is done in the Philippines or in India. There's a lot of things that I use on an outsourced basis that are very cheap and very efficient. Some of it's crap, but some of it's very cheap and very efficient.
But you filter through somewhere like Fiverr and there are good ones, and you just find a good one to stay with them.
Okay, so you've gone from employed, you've looked at that self-employed route, you're thinking about setting up on your own. We're a bit unsure, so you've joined forces with a company that sat underneath Open Work, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were self-employed / employed with them. It didn't work out because culturally it wasn't really a great fit. And that's another thing as well. If you're going into somebody else's business self-employed, they've got a vision and a pathway of where they want to take it, and it didn't really fit in culturally with where you all wanted to go.
Yeah, exactly that. That. So then, having moved my clients in under the Open Work umbrella and gone, this is what I'm doing, come with me, I'm moving to so-and-so. I then didn't think you can't move them again.
Yeah.
There's a whole thing. So it was like, okay, we've agreed to separate the business, was how we positioned it. And I'm going to go and do this under this brand over here. But everything you have and everything you do and all your client agreements and fee agreements and everything will stay exactly the same. They will just be transported across to where I was. So, that bit was far more seamless than the jumping ship in the first place. And then it was just a case of just settling in and doing something. Clients don't like change any more than everybody else does. And here I work for this company, we've been taken over, here's one lot of change. 3 years later I've moved and here's another lot of change. And by the way, a year later I'm moving again. Clients are then sat there kind of going, hang on a minute, where's this? Will my money be okay in all these changes? And that's the bit you do the reassuring and the looking after. So I'm still an AR of Open Work.
Okay.
Been in this format. So running my own business for 5 years. We just had a 5th birthday.
Okay, cool. Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. It's good. Yeah, I love it.
Okay. So you said, okay, cool. So you're underneath open work as an RI of an AR of open work. That wasn't for you. Then made the decision, right, I'm going to set up my own business. I'm going to go on my own and set up my own AR of open work. Is that right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you're an AR now of open work, and your business is called Brain Dog Financial Planning Limited. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the Brain Dog? What's the Brain Dog all about then?
Financial services companies are just called dull things. So I've worked for Integrity, I've worked
Yep.
for Essential, I've worked for Equilibrium, all wealth management. I've worked for Walker James and Finch Financial. Just they're all called the same thing, and none of them really tell you what they do. I knew I wanted to do more lifestyle planning, a bit more of the coaching thing, and we were laughing at home, and somebody said to me, well, what do you want to go set up on your own for? I went, oh, I've got a little brown dog I've got to look after. And it just kind of stuck at home, and it was like, I can't actually call it anything different now. and it does, I think it's enough different. So before my temping job, before the stockbroking temping job, when I sound like I've had a lot of jobs, I worked for a brand agency for a year.
Okay.
And it was at the time that Orange were launching a network, and everybody went, Orange, what kind of name's that for a telecom company? Why aren't they called Vodafone, British Telecom, Bougie's Telecom, whatever they were, Airtel? Why don't they call themselves Orange? That's stupid. And it was like, yeah, but you're all talking about it, and they all, you've all got an opinion one way or the other. So something unusual was always going to be on the cards, and I think it leads people to understand that we do things slightly differently, becoming more mainstream. There's a lot more lifestyle planning going on, cash flow modeling. Have I got enough? Will I be all right? Those kind of questions, rather than here's a pension. Yeah. Your investments have done okay this year. So yeah, and it makes for really easy branding. We've got chocolate Labrador and everything. It's great.
Nice and easy. So you mentioned there about lifestyle financial planning then. So, why have you chosen the route to go down, why have you chosen to go down the route of lifestyle financial planning then? Why is that so important?
Because there's an awful lot of big institutions creating a lot of products that they want pushed out to the market. And that historically was what a financial advisor did. We were the person that pushed all those products out to the market. And I often think that big banks, big insurance companies are not going to do, they're going to do something that's profitable and right for them. And if they can then package it up nicely so it's profitable, so it's right for the person at the other end-ish, then that's what they do. I think there are an awful lot of people out there that have a perfectly good workplace pension, have a perfectly good, the stuff they've accumulated in the past. There's nothing wrong with it. But actually what they want to know, people say, oh, I need to come and speak to you because I've got 6 or 7 pensions from previous companies and I need to consolidate them. That's not what they want to do. What they want to know is, have I got enough money? Will I be all right when I retire? And so rather than just pick all those up and put them into a neat place together and go, there you go, Mr. Client, off you go. For me to be able to turn around and say, okay, well, what have you got? Does it work? Yeah, do you know what? You could retire tomorrow if you want. You don't have to wait until 65 and I'm inherently very nosy, like I think most financial advisors are. Tell me all your deep, dark secrets and what's in the cupboard under the stairs.
Yeah.
And it's really, I love being able to say to somebody, I had a client come in about 18 months ago who, head of department, he's a maths teacher, had got bogged down with the admin and being head of department, and actually all he wanted to do was do the maths. He wanted to just teach kids maths, but he'd ended up in this kind of career job and progression that he'd said, yes, I must do this, to the point that he didn't like his job anymore. And he came in, recommendation from another client could he retire at 65? He'd got divorced and therefore he'd got a new mortgage on his home and things. And he was like, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to stop working and I don't want to do this. Well, he hadn't read the paperwork on his teacher's pension properly and he could have taken it 2 years before. And actually, because of what he'd done and how things had changed, the lump sum he took out of his teacher's pension cleared off his mortgage. So he could have retired 2 years earlier. I didn't tell him that, but it was like, no, you can stop right now if you want and just go tutoring if you want to. It doesn't matter. So this is 18 months ago. I thought he was going to cry in the office. We kind of wheeled him out the door and went, go and think about it, and we'll talk about that when you're looking less stunned. And him and his now new wife they spend 6 months of the year abroad in Europe, and they spend 6 months in England, and they have the most fantastic lifestyle, and all for just some slightly different questions at the beginning and looking at something slightly differently. That's so rewarding to be able to say to someone, sack off the job you hate. Yeah, absolutely.
And do you tend to find that when people come in to see you and they sit down with you, are they expecting those types of questions from a financial advisor?
No. We have a first meeting pack that we send out. Once we've booked a meeting, we send an email with it's a pack, and it just says, consider these interesting questions. And it starts with, what was money like growing up? Who do you want to spend your time with? They're relatively straightforward and easy to answer, and they're not too... They get into what kind of legacy do you want to leave and where do you want to live? And you often get, so they then come into the first meeting or Zoom or whatever it is, and they've answered 2 or 3 of them with travel, my wife, some friend, they're really bald and they're kind of like, why do you want to know that? And then you start to build a cash flow, and it's like, so now you have to give me those answers. So this is actually accurate. And then we give them the cursor to control the cash flow model. And that magic just happens then. Suddenly it's like, oh, what if we did this? Or we could do that. And but we kind of preemptive start those weird and wonderful questions at the beginning, and then they sort of expect they're coming in for something slightly different.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, well, it's like life-changing. It's life-changing advice, isn't it? As opposed to just like, here's a product, stick it in there, and let's hope for the best. It's like you're actually visualizing. You're showing them the path, aren't you, to where, in what situation they possibly can retire, how their lives can change, how much money they do need to put away to make that difference, but to also probably have a good lifestyle leading up to that as well.
The flip side of it as well, I've got one client who was working 50, 60 hours a week doing something. It was like, you have more than enough money, you're never going to be able to spend this. But because of where he'd come from, he was really worried about, he was a real security worrier. I don't want to go back to that hideous place that I used to live in. I don't want to go back there. And he still phones me up and says, I want to book a trip to India for 3 weeks and it's going to cost £15,000. Can I afford it? Like, yeah, go on. You can do it twice. In fact, you could do it 4 times this year, and we still don't have a chance in hell of running out of money and using up what you've got. Could you just spend it a bit more, please?
Yeah. So you get a lot of these people that are quite fearful around their money and making financial decisions. And do they sort of phone you up and almost looking for that reassurance by the sounds of it?
Completely.
Okay. Well, I like that. I like the sound of that.
People are either terrified they haven't got enough and a little bit embarrassed about calling with what they've got or not done. And actually, they're probably no different to most others. But then there are a lot of people that just validation, they're intelligent people that have earned good money and saved good money, and it's almost just a little bit of validation that they're doing the right thing and they've not missed something.
Okay, cool. So you've set up, you set up Brown Dog Financial Planning. It's been going for nearly 5 years, as you say. Well, it's fifth birthday quite recently. Just done, yeah. So within that 5 years, then let's talk about clients and how you built your client base up, because it's no easy feat, is it, going out and winning loads of clients and bringing loads of assets under management and getting those ongoing fees. It takes time and energy. So, what's your strategy when it comes to building new client relationships and bringing new clients on? How do you go about doing it?
So for the first, one of our best, and along with a lot of advisors, one of our best sources of referral is existing clients. But when you first start out and you've only got 10 of them, that's not, when you've been going a bit longer and there's 70, 80 of them, that referrals are easier. But so to start with, I did a lot of networking. I did a lot of, just commenting on other people's stuff on social media and just putting yourself out there. And it can be quite daunting, and it can be quite, it's really difficult to blow your own trumpet. But you get used to it, and you get better at it, and you get more thick-skinned about it. But yeah, just adverts in local parish magazines in the posh villages around here. Networking. If there was ever a who needs help with this on a Facebook post or something, I would put the bare bones of advice. You know, I'm having trouble sorting my mortgage out. I would put some notes about how a mortgage works and what the options that you can and can't do. So free advice for one, for almost a thing. The more you give stuff like that, the more your name goes out there, and two, if you give genuine, honest advice with no phone me afterwards and I'll sort that out for you, without the sales pitch on the end, that it builds a massive amount of trust. The first 2 years we got 3 or 4 clients. Oh, where did you see me? Oh, someone else put a post on Facebook, and I saw your name, and I saw what you said to her, and it felt, it didn't feel salesy. So
genuine. Yeah. Yeah, lovely. And that's a classic example of how social media can help you win new clients, and that personal brand that we were talking about at the beginning of the call. Have you found that you're sort of embracing social media that way as a business? Do you mentioned you comment. That's a great, and this is something that a lot of people don't do, is comment on other people's posts, especially on, say, LinkedIn, for example. And Facebook's a great one, especially if it's not very salesy. But when you do comment and someone sees your business name and they see it pop up more and more, they start thinking, well, that person knows what they're talking about. Perhaps I'll refer some clients across. Maybe it's an accountant. They think I'll refer some clients, or I'll set up a meeting with Jessamy because she sounds like she knows what she's doing when it comes to, financial planning. It's a really useful way. It helps me massively as well in what I do, is just commenting on other people's posts.
It just puts your name out there, and it's genuinely helpful, and then you're perceived as somebody that knows what they're talking about. Assuming that your comments are the right thing, but you know what you're talking about, and that you genuinely care about what you do. I also, you go down social media, and if someone asks a question like that, I can't help myself. I'm like, oh, tap, 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 tap. Yeah, you could try this or try that. Oh, yeah. So that was one thing we did. The other thing we did that I didn't even know existed, never mind that it would have such a big impact. We redid the website 2 years ago. We got someone to do SEO specialization in the background. So I've since discovered most website builders just don't do that automatically. It's an add-on, and I've noticed, I don't know whether it's because of where we're at with this year, that maybe more people just want financial advice, but our inquiries and our lead gen has gone, it's gone through the roof since we did the SEO. And I think there's a lot to be said for being on the front page somewhere.
100%. I totally agree with you on that. Yeah, SEO is definitely valuable. And that's another thing. If people think, well, I built a website, it cost me 5-10 grand. Some people are getting charged silly money for websites, and it's a glorified business card. And without the meta tag descriptions being put in there correctly, without content being put on the site that's of a relevant, of Google standards as well, so it'll be picked up, you're just not going to get fame. So when it comes to SEO, then that's interesting, because a lot of financial advice companies don't do it, and actually a small amount of SEO will get you ramped up Google rankings, no problem at all. And as you rightfully said, you want to be on that page one. So if someone searches, financial planning in Reading or whatever, wherever you live, they want you want to be known to be coming up on top. So with the SEO side, then, so you yourself rate SEO as a means to helping you generate inbound leads.
Yeah.
How much did you spend on SEO?
Very little. So when the website was built originally, the guys that built the website in the first place didn't do it, but they kind of went, oh, we can add a plugin if we have to. What's that? And again, a networking thing, there was a lady there talking about branding and SEO, and I was like, well, I don't really know what that is. And so I had a chat with her. I was like, well, it feels a little bit like black magic, but we'll have a go. And so I think she probably charged, I think it was about £200 a page And she went, she said, what kind of subjects what do people search for? What would someone put into Google or say into Siri or whatever to search for you? Give me those sentences. And she went and did a whole bunch of research as to how people looked for things and what subjects were worth answering. Because, if you, I don't know, I need help with my pension. There are 50,000 people answering that question. You're not going to stand out amongst any of them. So choose the subjects. Like there's very little about the residential nil rate band. And yet it was something people were asking about. There was something like only 25 answers to it. So she's like, write about stuff like that. So she did all that research in the background. These are the first 8 topics for your blog posts. Go and write a blog post. Oh God, that was awful. Yeah.
Did you not outsource that then? Did you not get someone else to write the blog posts for you?
Didn't have the spare cash to do it.
Okay.
So no, I took myself off one day and I went to a coffee shop with my laptop and my phone and I wrote 6 blog posts and I emailed them all to her and went, edit those. I never want to see them again.
Yeah.
But it's got easier. We do now outsource it.
Yeah.
But I do still write. I think it's quite important to every now and then write your own topic because my tone is slightly different to everybody else's. And although Rachel that does our social media is really good, she doesn't write the way I speak. So
sure. Your tone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Then you've got Rachel there then. So you've gone from working for somebody else as self-employed, you've gone into setting up your own business, Brain Dog Financial. You've got Rachel there. So you've obviously now built a team there as well. So how quickly was it until you started hiring people into Brown Dog Financial Planning?
Quicker than I wanted. So Rachel used to work for the same business that I did as an RI. And when I left, the boss there went, well, I haven't got a job for her anymore because there's no, if you leave, that's half the workload gone because she does all of your stuff and some of mine. So that was, when did I left? I actually left there in September. So we had a conversation about sharing and she said, oh, I'll subcontract her to you. And I was like, I'm not, no. She can have 2 part-time jobs, but I'm not being beholden to you when you get busier and want more time and I suddenly get left in the lurch. So she worked for me 3 days a week so I set the business up in July. From September, she did 3 days a week. I then got a phone call December. This doesn't work. There's no continuity. I'm going to give Rachel notice tomorrow, December the 22nd. That's right. Nice. And because of the way the contracts had changed, she was only on, I think she was on 2 weeks notice. It was like, oh, brutal just before Christmas. So I phoned her up and went, this is coming. And she went, but you can't afford me full time, can you? And I said, no. I said, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. She went, well, we'll just think about it over Christmas and sort something out. So I was like, okay. I mean, she's only 26 at this stage, 25. So to have that grown up an attitude about it I was quite impressed by. So she then phoned me back 4 days later and said, well, if you can afford to pay me 4 days a week, I'll go waitressing 2 days a week and we can make this work. I was like, okay. And then January is always a brilliant time for financial advice. Everybody gets their New Year's resolutions out and says, I can do. And the first week back in, we had 4 new client inquiries. So it was like, oh, do you know what? You can actually work full time here. That would be better for both of us. And I will just go and find new clients to pay the bills. So I paid her and I didn't pay me for about 6 months. And then probably for about the next year, I paid her more than I paid me. Like you do. We work really well together as a team. She's absolutely the perfect technical paraplanner personality. You know what we were talking earlier. She is definitely, I sit here and come up with a shiny idea and she breaks it down into process and turns it into something. Okay. And then so there were just 2 of us for 3 years. And then last year we took on a part-timer and we've just taken on last month another part-timer.
So you've taken on 2 part-timers. And what do these part-timers actually do then?
Admin. Both of them are admin based. yeah, all the compliance and stuff that goes with processing business and just running an office. And we've got an outsourced bookkeeper who does all of that stuff. She literally sends me some numbers at the end of every week and says, this is what's come into the bank account, this is what's going out, and this is what's due. Well, okay. So I do none of that anymore. So all that statement reconciliation and all that kind of stuff, I don't do any of that. So probably, I suppose Emily probably counts as a member of staff, albeit that it's outsourced.
So outsourcing for you in respect of freeing up your time has been really valuable, and also hiring some guys on an in-house basis, albeit part-time, one full-time, has also been beneficial to you. What about hiring new financial planners then? Are you looking to grow as a company? Do you want to hire more financial planners, or do you see yourself as more of a one-person company?
I want to hire. I want to hire.
Yeah.
I always thought I didn't want to empire build, and I've realised I was lying to myself quite a lot. I don't want to empire build massively. I want to empire build quality. And so one of the full-time hire that we've got is a younger employee with a view to training in-house. We've all just got a bit smarter about what happens and how things happen. The next hire would probably be a client-based role, client relationship. He's almost paraplanner, but not the technically bit, with a view to being an advisor. And put someone through their exams. So Rachel's done all her exams since she's been here. I think she did one at the previous place, and became diploma qualified last week. So
nice, yeah.
Campaigning.
And is that through the CII or is that LIBF? What route did you do it in?
No, it was CII, Open Work Run and Academy. That's CII based.
Yeah, the Open Work Academy is quite good, isn't it?
I also went the CII route. I'm chartered, but the trouble is once you take one exam, you kind of get tied in. There's a bit of a monopoly. I don't think one route's any better than another. I looked at the IFP exams and would far rather have done those if I knew they existed. You start accumulating points down one route, and if you change and go and do something else, you lose all of that pre-work that you've done. So you get stuck following a route. I don't think that's so great.
Yeah, because not everybody wants to do the chartered exams, do they? And some people really struggle with the exams. Do you sort of feel that having chartered status, does it improve your job? Do you get better clients? Does it have any benefit at all to the turnover of your business, for example?
The CII would like me to say yes, of course it does. No, I don't think so. I think it being able to offer a higher level, as in chartered is a word that the public understands, chartered accountant, whatever. It's a word that they've, it's medieval, whatever it was, market charters and things. So it's a word that they understand, and it's, I use it as a differentiator that says I am one of, not all of them are. That's it, really. That I did it because I was working with much higher net worth clients, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to get it wrong. So it was absolutely nailing some of that more technical aspect of what we do, and just making sure that I might not remember that exact bit of how that works, but I know it in principle and broad strokes, and you can go and research it. But without doing some of the chartered exams, I might not have known some of that even existed, or not well enough.
So it's a good starting point to building, again, it's a great starting point to building your knowledge. So it helps you build your knowledge. By building your knowledge, you do some exams, you pass your exams, you get a qualification. Chartered is a nice status to have. Not everybody is chartered.
It is, and the rules change. And then all the stuff that I learned in those chartered exams is now, I did those 2-3 years ago. They're now not, stuff's changed.
Stuff changes.
I couldn't pass one now. I probably could if I tried, but if I went and sat in front of one of the papers I'd sat back then, I wouldn't. So yes, it's a lovely thing to have, and I'm very proud of it. I wouldn't make everybody else do it particularly. It's a differentiator, that's all. You know, it's a little badge you can put on the end that says, I did this.
So let's say, for example, you know, you're in a situation where you're thinking about growing your business, you're looking to hire some more financial planners. Would you take on a candidate that had no qualifications, but had the personality or the design, the characteristic personality behaviors to be a really good financial planner? Would you take somebody on like that without the qualifications?
Absolutely, yes. The qualifications are the easy part to get. That sounds wrong because they're not easy, but they are the bit that you can study, learn, and do. The personality, the aptitude, the attitude, the just the basics that say, yes, this person could be good in front of clients and will behave. I'd rather home grow and teach somebody the way that we do things here, because it's not the same. I mean, you know, I do a very different job now to the one that I did for either in my employed role or as the RI. You know, yeah. No, I would home grow by choice, because I think you learn much more. I mean, I learned way more. So half of my chartered exams I passed because of my stockbroking experience. I wouldn't, you know, doing the investment AF paper was easy because it was all about stockbroking stuff. So I think experience and learning is a way better. And it's not just exams, is it? It's soft skills and questioning and empathy and thinking on your feet. And you can't.
What about age of an advisor? Because you know, you tend to, you know, the average age of a financial advisor, we all know, is about 56, probably a little bit higher now, actually.
Higher. It's been 56 for a long time. It's got to be higher.
Yeah, it's going to be higher. It's more like 58 or something, isn't it? And you've got also on the other end of the scale, 1% of the financial planners out there are under the age of 30. There's a great deal of younger financial planners. Do you think being younger, as in younger looking as well, is that a detriment to becoming a financial planner? Is it harder to sit in front of, say, a client when you're younger, talking about money, pensions, etc.? Do they take younger advisors seriously or not?
Do you know, if you'd asked me that last week, I'd have said no. There's an element of gravitas and grown-upness that comes with it, and how could you possibly know those kind of things without experience? And then I have read a few articles by a young guy called Taylor Beavis, who is local in Newbury as well. What's he, 22, 25, something like that?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, I've read some stuff that he's put out, and I just think, do you know what? There's a guy that is absolutely going places. Yeah, there might be some people that you sit in front of that don't, you know, oh, young man, what could you possibly tell me? What would you know? Well, they're just not your clients. They just don't fit. You know, we have clients come through the door here that I'm just like, no, you're not. You don't fit. You're not my client. I think that's there's a client bank out there for anybody. So no, I think it's how you position yourself and how you come across. And sometimes that comes, you know, you learn that through experience, which by nature makes you a little bit older. He, however, has nailed it very young.
Yeah, he's doing really well, because I've seen a bit of his content out there as well, actually, because he's getting publicized quite a bit, isn't he? Yeah, and I think, I don't know, sometimes, you know, historically, when I've been working in recruitment quite some time, placing people into financial planning practices, and the amount of feedback we used to get if somebody was quite young, you know, if they were young, oh no, not too, they won't work very well with our clients. And I think it was kind of alienating. It was quite ageist. It was alienating a lot of people and kind of possibly putting them off a little bit about trying to get into financial planning. But you've got so many more younger people now trying to get into financial planning. You know, there are, you know, people come to our website on a regular basis via the chatbot. You know, they're just finishing university, they want to become a financial planner. How do they get into financial planning? You know, and there's plenty of them out there. And I think, as you rightfully said, there's plenty of clients out there who've got money of all different ages, and not everybody is bothered by working with somebody who's younger than them, you know? So,
and I think that'll keep changing. You know, the internet has an awful lot to answer for in that it makes everything available to everybody. And you choose somebody that you like, that you know, like and trust, that resonates with you, and there'll be people out there that won't mind, you know, that somebody's a bit younger or not, or yeah, it's fine.
Cool. Okay, cool. All right, brilliant. So, so you're looking to grow. You've got team of 4 there at the moment, support staff. Looking to grow down that CRM route. Okay, fair play. What about yourself then? So you're out there. You're running the business. You're going out also. So you're running the business. You're hiring people, doing all that kind of stuff. You're overseeing what Rachel's doing in the team. You're going out and winning clients yourself as well then. So have you got to the point yet where you can kind of kick back and do absolutely nothing, or, you know, and bring somebody on? Is that what it happens when you run your own business, that you can just, you know, get a certain number of clients, assets under management, loads of recurring income coming in, and you can just put your feet up? Is that how it works?
That depends on your personality, I think. No, I don't think so. I think I've only just started it, and I'm really enjoying it. You know, this is fun. We've got a joint venture with a couple of others. Back in the employed advisor days, I did a lot of outplacement work through Manpower for people being made redundant, and it was a really horrible, sleazy sale kind of a workshop thing. I've got a joint venture with a couple of others doing outplacement, but with a financial planning bent and a life coaching. You know, you've been made redundant. Do you want another job? Do you want something different? How does all that work? And I think that's feeding clients into this business. But I think it's also, you know, growing clients for the future. You know, those people may not, they may only be 30, 40 something. They're not going to want to come and do full on financial planning. But if it's part of their outplacement package and their old boss is paying for it, and it sets them up the right way and gives them a handle on what they're doing, then why not?
So you're looking to, so you're branching into some other areas as well as financial planning. Yeah. Okay.
It's fun. You know, it's strategy and planning and business. Like, honestly, listen to me talking like this. 5 years ago, I had no idea how to spell strategy, never mind build one. You know.
So somebody's sitting there thinking about becoming a financial planner on a self-employed basis. Perhaps they're thinking about setting up their own business. What would you say to them?
Yeah, go on. Go and do it. It's one of the most rewarding careers, and it's one of the best things I've ever done. I mean, I loved the marine biology, and I loved the counting the sea urchins. Being a stockbroker comes with its own, you know, cachet of, oh, do you know what I do? And the world goes, oh, stockbroker, oh, you must earn loads. No, we don't. No, they didn't. You know, you work really hard and you don't. It's not all champagne and Porsches, unfortunately. But I really, really enjoy, I absolutely love being able to talk to a client and tell them that they will be all right, they have got enough. With this tiny, tiny little tweak here, this could be brilliant as opposed to just good, or whatever that is. And just, it's incredibly rewarding. Luckily for us, it also pays quite well. And it's great. I love it. Yeah,
so
do it.
Just get stuck in, you know, that's the key for doing it. And what about then going down the self-employed route? You know, a lot of people are sitting there thinking, I could do this, I could go self-employed. There's a little niggle in the back of their minds and they're a little bit concerned. You know, let's go back to that bit of advice then. If someone's thinking about going self-employed, what should be a little bit of a checklist? What should they be thinking about ticking off their list before they make the plunge into self-employment?
Being aware that you won't earn any money at all and or be able to pay yourself probably for the first 2 years. So having some kind of contingency savings or massive credit card allowance, or, you know, I shouldn't say that out loud as a financial planner, but that's what I did. You know, all the computers, all the telephone systems, all the everything, I stuck it on a credit card and just kind of opened the doors and went, gulp. But no, a bit more planning than I did would have been good. I'm naturally quite impulsive. I'm naturally quite impulsive and a bit of a risk taker. So that's why I did it that way. Because a bit of a backstop, a bit of a talk to financial planning communities are amazing with how much help they will give you. You know, I've posted on a couple of Facebook groups, I need help with such and such. And I've had messages in the background, you get the little post on the Facebook page as well, but I've had calls in the background that goes, yeah, I can help you with that. And do you need to meet so-and-so? And just the connections that are available. There are so many people willing to give you help. It's incredible. And I didn't know that at the time.
I think that's one part of it, isn't it? It's like you can be. I think when you set up a business, you feel like you should be doing it all yourself. Like if you turn to somebody and ask for help, then it may be a sign of weakness, or they'll think you're inadequate, or whatever it might. You feel inadequate, so you kind of lock yourself up, put yourself under a huge amount of pressure until you absolutely break, and then you go and ask for help, and it's like, why didn't I do this like 3 years ago? Why have I just stressed my nut out trying to run like multiple tasks because I'm trying to save a few quid here and there when I could just go and ask somebody's help or outsource it out for a few hundred quid instead of doing my brain in and working silly hours. And I think
also, with financial advisors, you kind of think, oh well, I'm intelligent and I know about numbers, so I should just be able to do this. And then you don't ask for help because you're embarrassed about it. Well, do you know what? So is everybody else.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah.
Yeah, just don't be afraid to ask for any help.
And actually, if there is someone listening to this that is thinking, God, should I do it? Shouldn't I? Phone me. I'll talk to you. Yeah.
That's
more
great.
than.
Yeah, I think, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, always looking to sort of introduce people that way. And, from my background as well is, I've helped many a financial advisor go down the RI route, the AR route, set up directly authorized firms, and always talking to people about how to do it because of vast experience of helping other people do it, and the mistakes they made and the things they've done really well. But great stuff. So the future looks bright for Brown Dog Financial Planning then. So you've got a couple of people there employed at the moment, hopefully going to grow in the future, happy to take on more financial advisors, not thinking about going down the directly authorized route then. Are you sticking with being an AR, or is that what's the benefit? What's the benefits of being an AR to you at the moment?
So I've done a lot of work with Brett Davidson recently. He was wheeled out by Open Work. He did a whole series of free workshops, stuff like that was just here. So what else? Someone like what else they give me? Voyant training, Andy Hart on tap, Brett Davidson to talk to, Michael Caulfield to talk to, Timeline software, Abraham Okasanya to talk to. All of those have come from my network. They're all given to me. I don't have to pay for them. I do have to pay for them. I pay a payaway to them. Of course I do. But there are things like that. So there is a real support system that comes with Open Work. And I'm a member of a peer group, and there are probably 20 advisors that are within a 10, 15, 20 mile radius of me here, which historically I would have thought of as my competitors. There are so many clients out there needing financial advice. Another financial advisor is not really your competitor. You phone them up for help. I mean, we meet up. We used to meet up once every 3 or 4 months for the day and just share ideas and things that we were doing and go for lunch and just actually have a great exchange of ideas and what was going on. We do it on Zoom at the moment, and it works okay. It's not the same, but it doesn't come with a pint in the bar afterwards. But I have everything. But I mean, I was always taught by my previous boss that other advisors are competitors. They're absolutely not. If they don't want to help you, they'll just say, oh no, I'm too busy. Otherwise they'll say, yeah, absolutely, I can help you, it's not a problem. So I think, quite a lot of support from a network. Am I thinking of going directly authorized? Always. It's where I came from. Yes, always. Every time I think about it, Open Work do something different. So, with portfolio of passives, Voyant, all these things have just kind of been, every time I think about it, something else pops up that kind of solves the problem that I was griping about.
I think as well, it takes away that research that you have to do. So a network is out there doing it. They're out there, hopefully sniffing around, trying to find the best technology, the best solutions, the things that are going to work for you so you don't have to. Because if you take that away, you've got to do it, haven't you? And it becomes incredibly...
It's a whole extra headache that comes with it that, they've talked to all these fund managers and worked out that actually, we had Neil Woodford on our panel until 3 months before it all exploded, because he'd done a couple of things in the background and they went, no, we don't want him. There's someone else doing that due diligence. I'd have been left carrying that can otherwise. There's enough to do with running a business, building a brand, looking for clients, managing a team, all the other things that are bolted on to just being a financial advisor that you have to do. Make it simple for yourself.
Cool. All right, great.
There are some things that I just think, I could just do that too.
Yeah, is it a bit of a prestige thing, do you think, having your own directly authorized firm? Is it kind of like I'm doing it and it's me and, I don't need the help of anybody else? Or what is it?
Maybe. I think it's choice, isn't it? It's a little bit like being an employed advisor going, I could do that better somewhere else. Yeah. And I think it's that whole, here's the whole choice, as opposed to, I work for a relatively restricted panel, but because most of the work that I do and most of the value that I add is the lifestyle planning part, the investment part at the end is a little bit controversially, I think, matters less.
So yours is more about the lifestyle financial planning, you're saying there. Okay, so okay, and then the investment side bolts on to the end of it.
You hold an investment of any sort for a reasonable length of time and it will deliver. You've got to buy an absolute dog consistently for it not to. But if you buy and hold and a reasonably good quality, not expensive, shoot the lights out, there's no point in going hunting for investment returns, because the guy that is really good this year will be rubbish next year, because of the way the investment cycle works, and different assets and different asset classes perform better at different times. So a good balanced portfolio that offers a reasonable, sensible, steady return, and then add value to the bit, the tax planning and the life planning and the goal setting and the do this to make it better. That's, in my opinion, is where the best value add is.
Cool. And listen, Jessamy, thank you so much for your time today. I'm going to draw it to an end there. So thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And, I think our listeners will understand a little bit about your journey and also the running of your own business, AR versus DA and all that lifestyle financial planning stuff. So I really appreciate your time today. And,
thank you very much. Actually, that was really interesting, Sam. Thank you.